Hey guys, this is Becky with Gehrisch Arts. I wanted to show you a video today of how I take my drawing and go back on top of a semi-underpainting to make sure I've got the lines set right. But before I do that, I wanted to give you a quick tip on paint colors and keeping track of them. I usually keep a list next to my painting and write down all the paints I'm using, kind of even what paints I'm blending. So for example, the hat, I would use a couple different blues and keep track of that separately, even reds and browns, whatever I'm using in that hat, so that if I come back later, way further on down the line in my painting, I can come back and add or tweak little bits of it and not have an issue where I'm using an ultramarine instead of a cobalt blue. I also am showing you some underlay, underpainting part where I just set in some of the shadows and shapes and some of the texture, and then I can go back over and get the detail. Now that I have the color laid in on the background, I have a better idea of some of the value I'd like. I decided I wanted it darker than originally planned. I've got a light source here that I want to be glowing, so I want this to be dark. She'll lighten up here a little bit more as we go. This is the part where I want to make sure my perspective is correct from my drawing. So I'm going to come in with my original drawing, lay it over, line it up about where I had it before when I first did my transfer, and just mark a couple spots. And I originally had some guidelines here of where things were, and now if you can see behind this rip, I don't know where that was. And I had chosen to put this door here arbitrarily. I didn't have a real good reference line, but I do have some reference line here of where some of the things are going. So sometimes I'll just put my finger on it and I can see my pencil, chalk pencil behind it. I'm not going to use a color pencil. That could be hard to write over sometimes. And I'm just kind of lining it up here a little bit. And then I can begin some of these bricks later. And I also want to do this vertical line to know where my angle is. These aren't perfect. This is an old wall. Some of the rocks might be off. I also want to mark about where I had this, but I don't want it there anymore. I think it's too high. So I'm eyeballing it here and just putting it a little lower. I think that'll be a little bit better for the composition. And then I'm going to move everything else I had as well down. So I had a line here, had a line there. I've got a swirl coming in here. And of course, I'm going to paint the background before I do this as well. So coming out of that is another swirl. And I really can't see too much of that now. I want to make sure I have the sidelines as well. I have a little bit of rock angle here. I just want to make sure that's coming out right. I base that off of coming in, finding the lines, and everything was coming at this point. So making sure I get that straight in. I'm going to have a crack of light there. I'm going to remind myself with that. Over here is all of that. Looking at her finger again, I notice there are some things I need to change. So I'm just reminding myself of those things. As you go, it's hard sometimes to get everything at the right angle as you're just working. So I'm making sure I do that. And at this point I can mark in this key. Fairly accurate, fairly satisfied. I've got my new markings in here. I have a better idea of what the angles are doing, and I can proceed with more detail.